Drawing groups is very intimidating, especially when you're starting out in art. I used to be like terrified of them. I wanted to always draw them because I wanted to emulate like manga covers and like anime drawings where they'd show like all the characters, or like, you know, I guess movie posters and stuff do this as well, where they layer a bunch of like character poses and character faces, and I always wanted to draw them. And also in my comics, I wanted to be able to draw crowd scenes because they're very impressive and they're great. Establishing setting, crowds exist, sometimes you want them in your stories, but they're so intimidating to draw because it's like, you know, it's hard enough to draw one person. It's even harder to draw like a big group of them and have them all look cohesive, like they're in the same environment and plane of existence. It's so hard. So early on, one thing I used to do, it happened a lot with crowd scenes, because if you have a whole bunch of characters in a crowd and it's so pulled away that you can't see their faces, like if you ever look at like a photo of like a football stadium full of people, it's like you can't distinguish all the little people. They kind of become a blur of like faces and torsos and stuff. So like I used to draw that for crowd scenes. It used to be just like circles and squiggles and silhouettes and stuff. Like I would never go into detail with anything. It was really bad when it was a group of like 10 people where it's easy to distinguish them, but I just draw them as silhouettes because I didn't want to like do the thing and draw them properly. But the thing that like got me into drawing crowd scenes or group shots of characters, one, it's because it's a necessity in comics. There's lots of scenes in the work I do where I need to draw groups of people. It's really nice for covers of things. So yeah, well, what got me out of the self-doubt and the fear of drawing a group scene is, well, it was Bones who pointed it out to me first. He was like, instead of thinking of it as a whole bunch of people, just try to think of it as drawing individuals, if that makes sense. And the reason he brought up, it was silly that I'm intimidated by drawing a group scene, but I'm not intimidated by drawing, say, like 7 different panels of like single people alone. Because it's like, I'm still drawing like a large amount of people. Just because they're on like separate sheets of paper or on separate panels, that doesn't mean that I'm incapable of drawing multiple people. So it's basically like you're splicing together all those like single shots of people into one image. And if you just focus on like drawing one person at a time, it gets a lot less scary. Now, just because you can draw like one person at a time doesn't mean that you will have a satisfying, like, group shot at the end. And that is because, well, you know, you need your people to look like they're in the same room, that they're standing on the same floor, as in, like, they're all the same proportion. You know, you want people to be in perspective. If someone's standing in the foreground, they're going to be larger than someone in the background. And figuring all that stuff is very hard. I will give you that, my friends. So I'd recommend when you're starting out with drawing group shots, definitely measure as you go. Maybe start with drawing, say, like, everyone's standing in a row, like in a line. They're all standing on the same floor. They're all at the same distance from, like, the camera, quote unquote. So, like, they're all in the same perspective. They're all beside each other. And just practice getting characters to all look in proportion to each other when all other, like, variables are neutral. So, like, making sure that they're, you know, someone doesn't have a giant head. You know, that's actually a trick I learned for, like, if you want characters to look like they are together in the same room, provided there isn't, like, perspective attached to this. If they all have the same size head, they will be in relative proportion to each other. So that is one trick to getting your characters to all look the same size. You don't have anyone who's like huge and anyone who's tiny. So once you have that all figured out and you know how to draw lots of people together, they look like they're in the same room, they look proportional to each other, then you can start plotting them into perspective. You know, make sure to always measure. Like I said, put grids on the floor to mark where your character is standing, measure where they would be if they were all in a line, and then move them within the perspective grid and see, like, if they get bigger or if they get smaller. And perspective is a whole other video I could do. The best thing you can do with group stuff is just to measure. When you're working on, like, a composition of a big group, I guess one way to keep it interesting and to make it feel real is definitely to layer your characters. It's very rare that you're going to have all your characters standing in a perfect straight line, especially in a comic where you want, you know, the position of your characters to lead the reader's eye around the page. So layering characters on top of each other. You know, if you have a big group, people are going to be in front, people are going to be behind. If your characters are interacting, you know, like linking arms or hugging or sitting together, their limbs are going to overlap, their bodies are going to overlap. So practice that a lot. And if it gets confusing, because it definitely can, especially when you have a ton of characters who are all like standing together, if they are like embracing or touching each other, it gets like very confusing. You might accidentally draw too many hands or something, or too many arms, or not enough arms. People's limbs might disappear. I definitely recommend, when you're starting out, use different colors to denote different characters. This is especially easy if you're working in digital and you have a whole spectrum of colors to work with. You know, have one character, they are drawn in red on the pencil layer, another character is drawn in blue, etc. So you can keep track of where everyone is and where all their limbs are. But yeah, definitely start with the basics. First, just focus on getting characters to stand together and look in proportion to each other, and then from there, you can go crazy. And as always, like, don't worry about getting it right the first time. Study to figure out how, you know, perspective is applied. Definitely always grab reference, practice drawing crowd scenes. It might seem daunting and time-consuming, but you'll find it, at least I find, is very, very helpful to see how people actually, like, interact and look when they are together in a crowd, or how they stand on ground in perspective. Man, that stuff's hard. Okay, I'm going to talk about all these wonderful, wonderful characters. They are from our Fairy RP, not Save Dad from Fairies, from the Fairy Kingdom RP. That also features Wolf and Calum, who are in an earlier video. Wolf is also in this picture. He is in the back, grinning like a little goofball. They are also from the same RP as Edwin, who was also worked on earlier this month, as well as Eve and Cordelia, who are from another video that came earlier this month. And I think we still have one more video featuring our Fairy Kingdom characters. We really like this RP. It's the current one we're working on. It's so fun, man. Okay, so these are all a bunch of anime villains. That's just how I think of them. So they are the Eastern Fairy Kingdom. They are newly formed. Wolf, he is the king. He basically married a human prince and took over his kingdom. In the fairy world, there are many different kinds of fairies. You know, there's goblins and pixies and nymphs. And there's a certain kind of fairy called a fairy lord or a fairy lady, and they have the capability of creating fairy kingdoms. They're one of the most powerful kinds of fairies outside of, like, you know, great spirits or like demons and stuff. So they have the capability of taking over kingdoms, creating kingdoms, or they can be a part of the kingdom. So every fairy kingdom needs a king or a queen, or they can have both. They can have two kings, they can have two queens, doesn't matter. They're gonna be two top of the hierarchy. In this case, it is Wolf. Later, he gets his human hubby, Calum, and then every kingdom requires 4 lords or ladies. And so each fairy lord or lady represents a season within that kingdom, and they gain more power if they are in their particular season. So if you are, say, like, fairy lord who reigns over spring, you're more powerful in the spring. And it works in a cycle like that. And when you become a lord or lady of a court, you gain a lot of power. Lords and ladies are already very powerful, but they get even more powerful and spooky once they join a court. So Wolf took over this human kingdom. He's in charge. He's not a very powerful fairy to begin with, and he's kind of a doofus. He doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, there's other fairy courts, like there's 3 others. There's the north, west, and south as well. The north is super, super scary. They are super powerful. The west is also very powerful, not quite as scary as the north, not as evil as the north. The north is like the big baddies, but still powerful and spooky compared to Wolf and his kingdom. And the southern kingdom is full of a bunch of sweeties who just want to get along and not fight. So Wolf, he's a little bit more powerful than them simply because of the fairies he attracts to his court. So when he creates this kingdom, a bunch of lords and ladies start showing up. Most of the really powerful ones have already been taken by courts already. So at first, Wolf gets some more of the, I guess, weak lords and ladies. he doesn't really know or care that they're weak. He just wanted to have a kingdom, and he's very happy when people start showing up. So the first one to show up is Azalea. She is the lovely lady in the lower right corner. She's my girl. I love her. So because she shows up first in the court, she is named Wolf's, like, right hand. She is, like, the one in charge, I guess. Even though she's not very powerful. So, her story. She is very petty and very mean. She likes to mess with humans quite a bit, especially, like, pretty girls. And the reason she does this is because she's very jealous of beauty. She considers herself to not be very beautiful, and she wants to collect the beauty of human girls, and steal it for her own. But the only way she can take, like, human beauty is if she can convince them that they're not beautiful, and then she can take it. She can't just automatically steal it from people. So she gets all these human servants when she's at the palace, and she starts stealing beauty from them and making them feel really bad. She starts turning a bunch of them into, like, ugly old ladies and stuff, and shriveling them up, I guess, as she steals all their youth and beauty and puts it into her own glamour to make herself look more beautiful. And she didn't used to always be this way. She used to be actually very sweet. She never had very good self-esteem, and that it got amplified when she was kind of forced into a marriage with a troll. So in this world, when fairies marry, they become very similar to each other. Their hearts meld. So when she married this troll, she became very mean and nasty like a troll is, and all her flaws really got amplified, and she got a lot more petty and a lot more aggressive, whereas before she was very, like, quiet and, I guess, docile and very sweet. So the reason she married this troll, it wasn't, like, exactly forced, like, she said yes on her own, but she felt like no one liked her. It was probably because she was a very, like, weak lady. And no one wanted to marry a weak lady because there wouldn't be much advantage to it. So then the first person to ever propose to her was this troll, and she was like, no one else will ever propose to me because I think I'm ugly and terrible. So then she said yes to the troll, and then she immediately regretted it when she got a little more confidence from the melding of their hearts. Also in this world, fairy lords and ladies are made. They're not born, they are made. I explained this in the Wolf and Calum video. So they are made by, like, extraordinary circumstances. So the way that Azalea was made was a beautiful maiden cried on an azalea flower due to heartbreak. And it was so beautiful, and the maiden's love was so sweet that it created Azalea, and she became a fairy lady. So yeah, maybe because of the way she was born, she was always a little heartbroken and just believed no one would love her, so yeah. But now she is a badass lady in charge, torturing all the humans and being very rude. But I still love her, because she's, like, a secret sweetie deep down. She, like, cares about her fam that she meets in this court. Like, she really just wants a gal pal to, like, be best friends with, and she finds that in Ambrosia. So Ambrosia is the cutie in the front, in the lower left. Ambrosia is a very powerful fairy lady. So the reason Ambrosia is so powerful is because she was created from a very rare event. She is also very rare in that she is a fairy with a sister, which is very uncommon because, like, fairy lords and ladies are created from rare events, but the rare event that created Ambrosia also created Saffron, Lady Saffron, who is behind Ambrosia in this picture. So the event that created them was the brightest day and darkest night that happened back to back. So in the darkest night, Lady Saffron was created, and in the brightest day, Lady Ambrosia was created. Another thing that makes Ambrosia very, very powerful is that she was married to a terrible evil spirit who's basically like Satan, who awoke like 10,000 years ago, and took Ambrosia as his bride. They were married, and then he was locked away again to slumber beneath the earth. So, because of her husband's power, she gained a lot of his magic. Also, his bloodlust. She's a lot like Azalea. She is very sweet, naturally. Like, she's a very good person. She's very smart. She's a very competent lady. Like, she has helped rule a kingdom in the past. Her and Saffron were part of a previous kingdom. Anyways, she's very sweet. Deep down, she likes really pretty and cute things, but because of her husband's heart being melded with hers, she also sometimes really loves murder. So, like, when she shows up at the palace, I don't think she's the second one to show up. I think her and Saffron are, like, the final fairies to join Wolf's court, but they always come as a pair because they are sisters. Ambrosia is always looking out for her big sister Saffron. But when she shows up, she's like, I demand all the cute ladies of the palace. And Azalea is like, excuse me? All the cute ladies are mine. I need to steal all their beauty. And Ambrosia's like, fine. I will take all of the male servants and turn them into pretty dolls. And, of course, all of the servants hate all of this. But so she takes all of the servants. As they displease her, she murders them, and brings them back as either tin soldiers or, like, pretty dolls. And that is her army of creepy servants. And at first, her and Azalea are, like, enemies. They really don't like each other. Ambrosia is like, I'm a more powerful fairy. Why is Azalea, like, the second in command? And Azalea is jealous because Ambrosia is super cute. Everyone loves her because she's powerful and she's cute. And she's super jealous. But, like, slowly they become friends just because they realize they like all the same things. They like murder and messing with humans, and they're not sure about Wolf. They really like him because he's the kind of king that just kind of lets you do whatever. He's not, like, super controlling or cruel or mean. You basically can ask him anything and he'll be like, yeah, sure, go for it. So they're like, maybe we could rise up and become queens. But it's all they just talk about it. They don't actually do it because they like Wolf and they're happy where they're at. But anyways, they become friends slowly. I friendship them. I think they're like cute sisters. Cute murder sisters, you know. So I guess that brings me to Lady Saffron. So Lady Saffron, like I said, is Ambrosia's sister. She previously was the queen of a court. So in the past, the Eastern court stood. It was destroyed and turned into a human kingdom for a long time before Wolf comes along and takes it over again. So Saffron was queen of the previous Eastern kingdom. She was married to a king. Can't remember his name. She was married to, and they had a very, very powerful weapon called a fairymancer. Bones talked about fairymancy in the video about Edwin. Go watch that if you want to learn more. Basically, fairymancy is a kind of magic that destroys fairies and fairy magic. They had a fairymancer. They were like, we're tired of this human. We're just going to take the power for ourselves. And the power of the fairymancer lies in their eyes. So they were like, we will take their eyes and use this power as our own to take over all the other fairy kingdoms. But everything exploded. Saffron's husband was killed, which tore her heart in two. That's what happens if you try to break a fairy marriage or if one of the spouses is killed. Because their hearts were joined, their hearts get ripped apart. So Eastern Kingdom disappeared, turned into human lands. Saffron and her sister left. She has never been the same. She's been kind of like a husk of herself. She's very weary of fairymancers. Because a lot of fairies really want to have a fairymancer to, like, destroy all the other kingdoms. But it's really dangerous because of what happened. So Saffron is always like, don't touch fairymancers. They'll mess you up. So a lot of the other fairies really respect Saffron because she was a queen. People keep accidentally calling her Queen Saffron because that's how everyone kind of thinks of her. She was this really powerful queen previously. But now she's just with Ambrosia and kind of sad all the time because she misses her hubby. Yeah, and she's just kind of content being in Wolf's court. He doesn't really ask anything of her. Sometimes he asks her for advice because she was a really good queen. I just learned some stuff about Saffron that I'm in love with because Bones and I were RPing this earlier today. So Saffron, apparently, okay, you need to hear about the Northern Kingdom for this to make sense. The Northern Kingdom is full of a bunch of evil fairies. None of those fairies are in this drawing, but the Northern Kingdom is ruled by Queen Umbra. She is very evil and mean because of an evil magic called Ichor that is taking over the Northern Kingdom. But in the current time, Umbra is she loathes other women. She's like, I don't want any women in my lands. They will be turned into monsters or killed. She only has lords in her court. She's very, like, cold and cruel. And I found out today that the reason she hates all the ladies and she doesn't want any in her court is because she was in love with Saffron. And then Saffron married someone else and broke Umbra's heart. Now she hates ladies because her heart was broken, and I just cry. I cry. And I love. But yeah, so there we go. Saffron I don't think she knew about any of this. And I think right now she's past the point of caring, because she doesn't really care about anything, except getting rid of the fairymancers. So yeah, that's Saffron. Moving on to my boy Emerald. He is the only boy on here that isn't a wolf. So Emerald, he is a sweetie. Bones talked about him a little bit. Oh my god, there's been so many videos about the Fairy Kingdom characters, but he talked about Emerald in the video about Eileen, the Chimera Cleric. So Emerald, he used to be a goblin. He turned into a fairy lord when he created a beautiful emerald ring that was like perfect, because he's always been like an inventor. But that brought him to lord status. So he really likes humans. He likes doing experiments and creating potions. He is a total sweetie. He's a lot like Wolf in that he will just do things for people. Like if you're like, I need a potion that will break this curse, he's like, sure, I can do that. Here. He mostly just wants to keep to himself and just make potions and experiment on stuff. So when he shows up in Wolf's court, he's just like, I want a tower. I don't need much space. I just want a tower where I can do experiments and leave me alone. And they're like, okay, cool. But yeah, I just like him because he's sweet, and he's a sweet goblin boy, and goblins are cute. Fight me. Yeah, so yeah, those are I kind of see, like, the Eastern Court as, like, Team Rocket, where they're evil, because they're evil towards, like, the humans, because they did take over a human land, and are torturing all the servants, and they're really mean to everyone. But they're, like, not the worst fairies out there. They kind of turn around and are nice to a lot of the humans in the end as the plot progresses. They're, like, the lovable bad guys, kinda. They're, like, our main heroes, even though they're evil and mean to humans. But I love them. They're a fam. They're, like, a found fam, and that just makes my heart melt. I guess I could tell you about, like, what's happened so far in the RP, because things are going down. So, like, after Wolf takes over the kingdom, there's a lot of fluff that happens. It's a lot of, like, Calum and Wolf falling in love, Ambrosia and Azalea becoming friends. Emerald helps out Princess Sarah, who is Calum's sister. There will be a video about her coming up. She's very cute. She's a human, but, like, Emerald and her hang out, I guess. He gives her potions and stuff. But yeah, there's lots of fluff that happens. But because, like, they're a new kingdom, all the other kingdoms decide to visit and celebrate Wolf's coronation and, you know, welcome him as a new fairy king. So he's like, we're gonna throw a party. Everyone's gonna come. It'll be great. And he also needs to use this party to, like, cement himself as, like, a powerful ruler who no one should mess with, because there's always the threat of being invaded because he's not a very strong king. And because his fairyland is so new, he hasn't had time to, like, assemble an army. He's only just gotten his lords and ladies. So they throw this party. Ambrosia and Azalea are very excited to decorate everything. Especially Ambrosia. They're very nervous because the Western Kingdom is coming, and the West is very, like, particular. So King Lilac, he loves everything to be beautiful and purple and sparkly because he is a purple, sparkly, beautiful unicorn. So they're like, we need to make sure that, like, everything is to his standard so that he doesn't start a war with us, because if anyone would start a war over how beautiful things need to be, it would be Lilac. So they make the kingdom all blue and white and sparkly because Wolf is like a winter guy. He really likes ice and winter and coldness, so they model everything after that. It's all very cute. They're not so worried about the Southern Kingdom because they're a bunch of sweeties, but they are terrified of the Northern Kingdom because if Umbra shows up, she's gonna expect all of the women of the other courts to just, like, not be there, because then she'll be mad, which kind of sucks for the Southern Kingdom because they have a queen, not a king. So the heckin' queen of the South doesn't even get to show up. So rude. She is Queen Possum, and she is a darling. She's just a mom to everyone. Right. So they throw this party. At first, it's just the South and the West that show up. Everything's going kind of okay. Lilac Meets Eve. You can hear about all that in the second episode of Inktober, where Bones talks about Lilac and Eve. Eve is just a half fairy girl. Is another character. She's part of, like, Team Human. She's not part of this court. Anyways, but she's there. Lilac decides he wants to marry her because she is very beautiful, and Eve is hiding. He turns to Azalea and he's like, make this girl stop hiding. She needs to show off her beauty. And Azalea's like, I can't make her do anything. She's not part of our court. And then for talking back to him, Lilac takes Azalea's glamour away. So all of the beauty that she's collected and worked so hard to get from all of these humans that she's been mean to, it all gets taken away, and she looks all her flowers are wilty, and she looks all ugly, even though she probably still looks really beautiful. She probably just looks sad. She doesn't have any heckin' confidence in herself. So she's horribly upset. All the stuff with Lilac and Eve happens. And then the party is ruined even further when Queen Umbra shows up. And she turns all of the women in the room. She was supposed to show up like a day later so they would have time to prepare and, like, remove all the women. But she shows up early. She turns all the women that are present into, like, shadow puddles on the floor. And she goes and talks to Wolf and has a very threatening conversation with him, where she's like, I am going to send my troops into your kingdom. We're going to destroy the South, and we're going to let you live if you let us into your lands. And he's like, oh, okay. So he lets that happen. It's very sad because he just tried to strike an alliance with the South, and the South are sweeties. So they try to start developing plans to, like, ally with the West, and the West is trying to ally with the North because they're like, we want to get on the North's good side because they are big and scary. But what ends up happening is Wolf lets the North go through his lands and invade the South. They're taken over, and then because the North is so heckin' powerful, they just take the West, which was, like, their biggest enemy. And so, like, Wolf and the Eastern Kingdom are like, oh my god, we're doomed. But for some reason, Umbra isn't attacking. And they're like, what's going on? So it turns out Umbra doesn't want to attack them right away because Saffron is there. And Umbra doesn't know about fairymancers. She just knows that Saffron used to have a weapon that destroyed her kingdom, and she's worried that she still has it and that she will destroy Umbra if she comes near. But eventually, it's found out that Saffron doesn't have a fairymancer anymore, so the Eastern Kingdom is taken over by the North, and it's very sad. All of the lords and ladies are kidnapped, except for Azalea. So before they were attacked, everyone could kind of tell it was on its way, because the West and the South were gone. So Ambrosia, because she cares about her sis, she's like, Azalea, you need to leave. And Azalea's like, no, I'm tough, I'm gonna stay and fight. And Ambrosia's like, I want you to survive this. If Umbra shows up, she's gonna kill all the women, and I don't want you to, like, be turned into a monster or killed, so you should just leave and find somewhere safe to hide until all this blows over. So Azalea is, like, really insulted. She storms away, goes and has a good cry and feels like a dummy and like no one likes her. And then everyone's kidnapped except for Azalea because she wasn't there. She comes back. She's like, I'm gonna go save all my friends. Because she comes back, like, ready to help them fight, and they're already gone. But yeah, so she decides to go save her friends, and she's gonna find this fairymancer and get her kingdom back. Azalea's my babe. So meanwhile, Umbra, using this ichor stuff, which is like this crazy magic stuff, she is doing all these horrible experiments on people. It's how she's turning all the ladies into monsters, but basically she is stealing lordship and king and queenship from fairy lords and ladies. So she takes away Wolf's kingship and lordship, which turns him back into a wolf, and she does it to Calum, which turns him back into a human. Can't remember if I mentioned this, but Calum became a fairy because he married Wolf. Anyways, so everyone gets their lord or ladyship taken away, so they get turned back into, like, what they originally were. So Emerald becomes a goblin, and right, Azalea wasn't there. And Ambrosia, they decide to try and divorce her from her husband. They want to see if it's possible to break up a fairy marriage and have them not, like, become husks. So they replace half of Ambrosia's heart with ichor, and it is very sad, and she's not okay. And that is kind of how we've left it. Umbra has also taken over one of the other human kingdoms. She is ready to destroy everything. She's trying to create a dragon. So all these little anime villains need to team up and save the world from evil Queen Umbra. Like I said, we're currently working on this RP. I really like it. I've been wanting to draw all of these kids because they're my fave for a while. And yeah, that's all I have. Man, there's so much. This is a long video. Okay, I better get going. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. If you want to see more Inktober videos or videos about comics and art, make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our anthology that we're working on about LGBT werewolves. There's a link to it in the description down below. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!